Hello everybody, this is Kay. Thank you for joining me today here on my channel, Gigi's Paper Treasures. I have a fun little project to share with you today. This is kind of a one-sheet wonder because you use one entire sheet of a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper to make the base. But then I've used more than just that because I made my tags and my notebook and my journal card that'll all fit into here out of different pieces of scrapbook paper from the same paper pack though. I have been looking for a project to use up some of my scrapbook papers, and I've been particularly trying to use up the rest of this paper pack, which I had gotten from Joann's quite some time ago. And this is what I have left. I have about, I don't know, maybe 10 out of the 48 sheets left, plus this green one right here, which is what I'm going to use to make one of the bases for this project today. But it's kind of a pocket album, flip out pocket album. It flips out like this, and you have a pocket in the front, you have a side pocket here, and then underneath this flap you've got 3 little side pockets, and then on this side I've tucked in a little notepad. So I want to give a shout out to Alyssa, and the name of her channel is Berry Little Crafter. She put out a video a few months ago, and that's the video that I watched, which inspired this project. So the base of it I've done entirely like she did hers, but of course I've decorated mine a little differently, and then I decided in this big side pocket to make a little notepad rather than just, I think on her video she put in just another large journaling card. So there's that option as well, but I wanted to add more journaling space, so that's why I opted for making the little notepads. And I've made 3 of them. They're pretty quick and easy to make, and that's the project I'm going to share with you today. So I made these 3, and I also just kind of, on these 2, I embellished my little notepad with a few beads. You can see I've used some other metal embellishments with a little heart-shaped jump ring there and some brads. This is just a little link from a chain I had bought, and another one of those heart brads and beads. And then I cut out some die cuts with some of my leftover scraps to decorate the front of this pocket with, and die cut out some flowers for my tag topper there. So I'm going to make one of these with you today. It should be a pretty quick video, and I hope you get inspired to use up some of your 12 by 12s and make up some of these too. And I also thought that these would be a great craft fair item. I am getting my inventory kind of built up again for some upcoming craft fairs I have this fall. So what I'm going to do today is this one green sheet that I had already pulled out of that paper pack to make my base with. And oh, one more thing is, this is a great project for those one-sided scrapbook papers that we all have. Well, I guess I can't say we all have them, but I have them. What we're going to do first, you can see I got my trimmer out here, is we're going to cut this down. And the first cut we're going to make is going to be a horizontal cut at, I want a 7.5 and a 4.5 piece. And I think I want this bottom part to be my 7.5. And that's what makes the large base for this kind of pocket album journal project. So I'm going to cut this horizontally at 7.5. So that gives me a 7.5 by 12 and a 4.5 by 12. And I'm just going to set this piece aside for now. And then I'm going to take this 7.5 by 12 piece, and I'm going to cut off a 3-inch strip. I should cut the 3-inch on this end. I think I will. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to cut off at 3 inches on that end. So what I'm going to have now is a 3 by 7.5 and a 9 by 7.5 inch piece. Alright, I'm going to put my trimmer away for now and grab out my little scoreboard here. And we're going to take the 9 by 7.5 inch piece, and you really don't need to score this, you could just fold it in half, but I'm going to use the scoreboard just because I have it here, and it does make the folding, this is, you know, like kind of a heavier cardstock piece of scrapbook paper, makes it a little easier if you do have a score line, but it definitely isn't necessary. So I'm just scoring this halfway across, which is at 4.5. And then I'm going to fold it in half. Now you can, even when you use the scoreboard, you can still kind of train your score line. I just want to make sure this is even on the edges, and then score it down like so. And this is the base of the whole project. Now I understand the little birdie is in the back because my opening is going to be on the left side over here, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to decorate up the front of this a little bit more with that other pocket and a tag, so it won't matter that, you know, the birdie's on the back. So that's all you do with that piece. And you're going to have your fold open end on the left. And then for this piece, this is what's going to make these 3 little side pockets here. So I'm just going to turn it this way, and I'm going to score it at 2.5. And I'm just going to do a light score. I'm not actually going to fold on these score lines. Basically, that is just showing me where my 3 pockets are divided. Because what I'm going to do next is grab my notch punch, this little thing, and I'm going to put the little notches in the side of all 3 of these little side pockets. And having that score line just kind of helps me eyeball it a little better to try and get these notches right in the middle of each of those 3 little sections. If you're an inker, then this is the time to ink these 3 little pockets, because once you glue them down, it's much more difficult. So I'm just going to real quick ink along this edge of these 3 little tag pockets. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to just glue this little side pocket piece to the left edge, left open edge of this top flap, and I'm just going to put my glue top, back, bottom, and then a thin line along each of those score lines, and that will kind of divide up those 3 little mini tag pockets. And I'm going to go ahead and finish inking all the edges of this bottom piece as well, now that I have that little piece glued on. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for a minute, and we're going to work on this other piece. This was the 12 by 4.5 inch piece that we had cut in the beginning. So I'm going to take this now, and I'm going to score this at basically 3 1/4 from each side. So I'm going to go 3 1/4 from this side. I'm going to turn it around and go 3 1/4 from this side. This is what's going to make this front kind of flip pocket here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one side, and I'm going to score it at a 1/2 inch. And I know my little scoreboard here doesn't go all the way down, but what I can do is score it a 1/2 inch there and then just kind of move it down my scoreboard and finish scoring it at 1/2 inch. And I do have a larger scoreboard, it's just not accessible at the moment. So this is what I have. I have this piece divided into 3 sections with a 1/2 inch section on this side. Now what I need to do is I'm going to cut out this small rectangle on this 1/2 inch scored side and this one down here, leaving this middle piece intact. And I'm just going to cut very carefully just to the right of the score line so that I'm kind of cutting that score line out, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to get it right. I want this to be a smooth straight edge right here. And then over here, I'm going to cut it at a little bit of an angle and just cut that out. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, a little bit of an angle, and then just inside the score line on this side as well. So this is what we have now, and these are basically the only 2 little scraps of this entire 12 by 12 that aren't going to get used. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my little tab and I'm just going to kind of fold it back and forth a couple of times like this, just to make it nice and flexible. And I can grab my bone folder to help with that. What we're going to do with this is flip it over, and I'm going to fold the top part down on that score line, and I'm going to kind of train it to try and be just inside the score line of this little tab here. And then the bottom gets folded up the same way. And one thing you will want to keep in mind when doing this project also is if you've got directional paper, this one is a little bit directional because it has that bird image on the back. I don't know where I put that already. Oh, here it is. It has this on here, but you know, I was able to cut and arrange it so that this was upright and this is upright as well, even though this is on the back of the item. It's not upside down. Now this is a little bit of a image that was in one corner of the scrapbook paper, but it really doesn't look too bad the way it's positioned on here, so I'm fine with that. I'm going to cut a notch in here like this, just eyeballing it, and I'm going to ink that up as well. Okay, and so what we want to do here is we want to close this entire side, but we only want to glue it here because this is going to be an open side pocket here. So basically I'm going to put glue all along this left side on the top flap and the bottom flap. And then I'm going to kind of eyeball where I need to put the glue here because I just want to attach it on this edge without closing up that pocket. So it's closed up entirely on this edge, but it's opened entirely on this edge. And I can see how I got off. Sometimes my cuts aren't perfect. I have a little bit of an overhang there, so I'm just going to trim that off real carefully, real quick, even with the side pocket. See, that's all that was hanging out. I'm a little OCD about things sometimes, so I have to trim those off. And now I'm going to finish this little pocket piece up by inking all around. Okay, so now we can join these two pieces together, and this is basically this little hinge is going to be attached just inside this top cover, and I'm gonna leave a little gap down here because once I get this attached, then we're gonna be closing up this back pocket piece. So I'm gonna be adding glue all along the tab flap here to attach it to the base piece. I'm just going to put glue along the top and bottom edge of this back piece to make that big pocket. That's where we'll be tucking in our little notepad that we're going to make here in a minute. I've already cut the pieces the size I need for my little notepad, and the cover part is 6.5 by 9, and I'm basically just gonna fold that in half, and actually I'm gonna get my scoreboard out again and use it because I just like the way things, cardstock in particular, folds better when I score it first. So I'm gonna score that and fold that, again making sure my ends are even. And then what I've got for my pages is this is actually kind of some cream colored resume paper that I picked up at a thrift store. And the size of this, I wanted it a little bit smaller than the actual cover. So these are 8.5 by 6, and I have 5 pieces here. I'm just gonna fold them all together, getting those edges, as close together as I can, like so. Okay. Now I also like to round the corners of these. I think when you round the corners, things kind of go into pockets a little bit easier. So I'm going to round just these outer corners. This is my corner chomper, which when I have heavier papers or several papers, you can punch them all at once together, so that saves time. My other little corner puncher, I'm afraid I would break it if I tried to use it on 5 pieces of paper at once. I'm just going to use a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch to sew this together. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 plus a few inches because I want to tie a bow on the end of this when I get done. So I want a little extra. So I'm going to get that ready. I'm going to grab my needle here and hopefully this will thread easily. Sometimes when I'm using this baker's twine that has like the gold filament kind of in there, it doesn't want to thread very easily, so I just fold it over and pinch it tight and force it through there. There we go. So I've got that ready, and since this is just a little notepad, there's just one little signature, I'm not going to use any kind of a template. I'm just going to position it in there evenly all the way around. I'm going to poke my holes by just eyeballing the middle, and then maybe like a 1/2 inch or so from the bottom and the top of the pages. Okay, so most of the time when I'm sewing in signatures, I start in the middle here, but since I want a bow on the outside when I'm finished, I'm going to start with the top hole and I'm going to start from the outside. And I'm going to leave a pretty good tail so that I have plenty to tie my little bow with. And then I'm going to go through the middle to the outside. So I'm kind of just, for this one, doing like a figure 8. Oops, don't pull it all the way through. Let me pull some of that back through, okay? And then the bottom hole. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure everything's nice and snug before I go back through this middle hole, just in case I catch my thread when I'm going back through, which is very possible. Which I did. Okay, let me see if I can undo that. All right, that was really lucky that I was able to do that, actually. Okay, so, and then I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to tie a square knot. I can take my needle off now. And actually, before I tie anything, I want to get a little more length back up here. So I'm going to pull some of this back through here and up through here and here, because I want to have plenty of length on both of these at the top. Okay, make sure it's good and snug in there. And first I'm going to tie a square knot. So this can be a little tricky doing it this way and keeping your knot at the top. But I'm going to go left over right, and then I'm just going to kind of wiggle and make sure my knot is as close to that hole as I can get it. And I'm going to kind of hold it, and then I'm going to go right over left with my other hand. This is when a third hand would come in real handy. But because I'm wanting to keep it snug, I have to keep a finger on that, and so I just manage somehow. But you just basically want a square knot as close to that top hole as you can get it. And I always do a square knot first, just in case my bow comes undone, and then, you know, the whole thing falls apart. I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to tie a bow, make it a little bit smaller. And because this is baker's twine and will come unraveled, I'm going to do a knot in each one of these free ends and trim that off just below the knot about 1 inch or so. Now all we have to do is add the tags and decorate the front of this pocket a little bit, and I think we'll be done. So I've gone ahead and prepared what I want to decorate and put on in these pockets. So for this front pocket, it's already kind of got a little bit of a design here. So I just went to some of the scraps from that same paper pack and punched out a 2-inch circle that included this adorable little butterfly image. And I'm just going to glue that right on here, but I'm going to kind of put it off to the side in the corner so that we can still see this pretty design on the paper. So this piece, and I've already inked everything up, I'm just going to put glue all over the back and glue it down. Easy peasy. Just like that. Okay. Now let's work on the tag for this big pocket, and this is a large tag which I've already cut and prepared and inked and everything. And just to give you the size for this project, this tag is 6 by 3.5. Now, I wanted to say you can adapt this project to any size pieces of paper, I believe, but you know, your items that you tuck inside will also have to be adjusted according to what size you make your little journal album. So this is 6 by 3.5, and it fits nicely down into that pocket like so. But I want to decorate it with a kind of a fancy topper. So I did some more die cutting, again, of some of the scraps from the paper pack as well as some solid colored scrapbook papers that I have that kind of coordinate with this pack. And I'm going to ink those up real quick. And I'm going to attach these to the top of my tag with a brad. So let me just get these inked up. Okay, the doorbell rang, so I had to go see what that was all about. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line these up. I have a kind of a thick piece of styrofoam here, and I'm going to line these flowers up. You know, just eyeballing, trying to center them as best I can. And and if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, you know. It is what it is. And take my pokey tool and just go straight through the middle like that. And now I've got some little mini brads here. And I'm going to stick with gold since I've got some gold in here and in a couple of the other elements that I'm going to be putting on. So I'm getting a little low on gold. I tend to use them a lot. Might have to order some more soon. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this through my flowers, but not open it all the way yet. Just open it a tiny bit so that the brad doesn't fall right back out again, like that. And then I'm going to take my tag and I'm going to go down maybe about 1/4 of an inch because I kind of want the tag to stick up above, or the flowers to stick up above the tag a little bit. So I'm going to eyeball the middle and go down about 1/4 of an inch or so and poke a hole in my tag. And then put my flower dies and brad through there like that. And then I can turn it around and the legs of the brad. I just sometimes use the back of my pokey tool here to flatten that out. And then what I did on the other ones, because I didn't really want, you know, to see the brad, was, and I didn't have this ready, but I'll get it ready real quick, was a circle punch of just some of this solid paper that I have on hand. It's kind of a peachy color. It goes real nicely with this paper pack. I'm going to ink that up real quick. And then I'm just going to glue it on the back on top of that brad like that so that doesn't show. And then we have our large tag for our front pocket. Okay, so for this side pocket, opening pocket, the journal card for this particular size project needs to be 5 by 4. So it's 5 high and 4 wide. And I just cut this out again on another piece of the same paper from this pack. I just thought that butterfly was lovely on there, so I cut around that to make that fit into here for our journal card. Okay, and then for the inside, we need 3 little tags. And these tags are 2 by 4, 2 inches wide by 4 inches high. And I'm going to decorate the tops of each of these. Now I have a couple more of my little dies, and I thought I would use those on this one because it's kind of plain. So I'm going to use that for that one. And then for these two, I just punched out a couple more circles. Now what I like to do with these is fold them in half. And I'll ink them up and I'll put them on the tops of these tags like this. And for the flower one, first of all, I want to do a little bit of inking. And I decided on this one I would not use a brad because I didn't want to add that much bulk to these tags on the inside because I really want this whole thing to lay nice and flat. So I'm just gluing these down and inking them up first. And so I'm going to have it sticking up a little bit above, so I'm not going to put glue like where my finger is here. So I'm just going to kind of put it everywhere else except for across the very top there. And that part is going to go above the tag like that. And then this piece just goes in the middle of that. I'm just going to put some dots. And that goes right there. With the art glitter glue, you have a few seconds to kind of maneuver and wiggle things into place. And then for these, I just need to ink them. I like to put glue on just 1/2. I'm actually going to leave these sticking up just a little bit above the tag. But I'm going to do it like that, and then I'm going to place my tag, just eyeballing it and leaving that crease just a smidge above, so it just sticks up a smidge from the edge of the card. And then I can glue the other half down. And these 3 little tags are ready to pop into our side pockets. And they can be a little bit tight. That's why when you're gluing this pocket piece down, you want to make your little glue lines just as close to the edge as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. And you can always trim your tags a little bit narrower too if it's too tight of a fit. But I think these are going to be pretty good for going in here. Now, on this inside panel, on the other ones that I made, I thought they were kind of plain, so I had gone to my stash and found some stickers. Like on this one, Be Strong and Be Brave and Be Fearless. I found a sticker for each one of those because they didn't have, I used pretty plain paper for this, but this had the design on it. And so I'm happy with the way this looks. It doesn't look too plain, so I'm not going to do anything extra to the inside here on this one. I think I want to do one more thing to this project before it's complete, and that is I'm going to add an eyelet on the outer edge here at the top, just like I did on the other ones. And I'm going to use the small hole because I'm using a small eyelet on my crocodile here, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it up there in the corner. And I have a small gold eyelet here. Gonna pop in there and chomp that down. Nice. And then I went to my little bin of charms. I have this, well, it's a tin actually, that I put charms in when I make them, and I've got all kinds of different charms in here. But I found this one that I thought would go nicely with this project. It's just a bulb pin that I put a few beads on. And I'm going to see if it works on the edge of this card. The green bead in the middle has some gold in it too, so I thought that would kind of tie in with this whole thing. So I'm just going to, maybe I should go from the front and pin that on there. And there we have it. So that adds a little bit of bulk to this, but not to the inside. You can see it still lays kind of flat. There, I think that looks real sweet. So that is it for our project for today. I think these are really fun. They really do work up pretty quickly. And I'm gonna try and use up the rest of my papers from this paper pack and make some more of these for fall craft fairs that I'm going to be involved in. And once again, I want to thank Alyssa at the Very Little Crafter for inspiring me in this project. And I hope that you get some inspiration from my video today. Thank you so much for watching, and have a blessed day.